Well, hello everybody. I'm Hal,
And I'm Melanie.
and we want to welcome you to another episode of Making Biblical Family Life Practical. Well, so homeschooling has just taken
Exploded.
off, just exploded the
It
past.
has. It's grown from like 2% to 11% of all school-age kids are now
It's
homeschooled.
huge. There are an awful lot of people who are brand new homeschoolers who basically watched their kids' Zoom classes from the public school system and said, surely we can do something that's more interesting than that.
Yeah, seriously.
And so,
I think when you decide to homeschool,
mhm.
it's a difficult decision. It feels like you're launching off into space, into a new exploration to someplace nobody's ever been before, because for most of us, we weren't homeschooled. And so,
Well, you know what? Your average family, the average child that goes through the school system, so much of their life is wrapped up and integrated with school.
yeah.
You know, that's where they meet everybody. That's where their activities are. That who sets their schedule. That really is pretty much the majority of their daily life rotates around the school. And when you say, okay, we're going to do something entirely different, that's a yeah, that sounds like a huge unknown.
And so we want to tell you, first of all, it's doable. We have been homeschooling more than 25 years.
Yeah.
And we've graduated 6 of our 8 already.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that you can do. That can feel harder, though, when you have unsupported family. And I recognize a lot of people do because, in the beginning, our families were like, what are you doing? Aren't you going to put your kids in school? What if you ruin their lives?
Well, and I know we have friends who are African American, and they said the decision for them was really tough with their families because, their grandparents are saying, we had to fight to get permission to go to the same schools with the white kids, and now you're walking away from it. And so and that's one of the communities where the growth has been the greatest.
Oh, it's been massive, many multiples of what it is in other communities. And so you may be facing family that does not understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Right.
Or they may think, okay, well, that's okay during this special time of COVID, but you are going to put them back when this is over, aren't you?
Well, I mean, bless her memory, your grandmother went to her grave asking, aren't you ever going to let those children go to school?
Yes.
And I say, well,
they've never been. They don't have any desire to go. They're pretty happy doing what we're doing. No, we're not going to send them to school. That was impossible for her to understand. And
so, okay.
So what do you do?
Well, all right. Well, I think first thing is recognize this, that there is support out there. It's great if your family is supportive, but you really ought to find some local homeschooling groups to get associated with that help provide a peer group for your kids, that give you a peer group for the mom or dad or whoever's doing the teaching.
Yeah.
Getting involved with the homeschooling community is a real lifesaver. That's a real help. So don't play that short. Okay, don't downplay that. But I think one of the things is recognizing that there are some people who are just mean-spirited, but your parents, generally your family really is concerned about you. They really do care.
See, that's where I think you need to start. I think you need to remember, you know what, they love me and they love my kids, and they don't want us to make a mistake.
And if you have really mean-spirited family, you know who they are, but it's not everybody. I mean, so you can kind of assume the best from the family, even if they are skeptical.
Well, there's a couple of different ways you can handle this. If the questions are genuine and the concern is genuine, they don't know about this, they didn't do it, they don't know anybody that did it, and so they're thinking, oh my goodness, are my grandkids going to be okay? Then you answer their questions cheerfully and completely, and you explain, look, Mom, you may not realize, but there are 5,000 families homeschooling in Wake County. And no, she won't have realized that. And she may not realize that there's a homeschool prom, there's a homeschool basketball team, there's a homeschool football team. They've never heard of that stuff. And so for them, yeah, our elderly blind dog is bumbling around the room, knocking into things while we're talking.
Sorry about that.
Y'all forgive her. She means well.
Yeah, always the best intentions.
Yes. But they don't know those things, and so share them. And just tell them, don't get in a fight, don't argue, don't be angry, but just answer their questions. Now.
Well, and see, you touched on something there. What is it that they are concerned about? They're concerned, are our kids going to learn anything? Yeah, okay. Are they going to have any friends? Will they be doing anything outside of the home? Or is it all going to be, I think there's this little mental picture that some people have that when you become a homeschooler, you climb down in your bunker and you seal the lid down on your family and they never see daylight again, which is ridiculous.
It's not that way at all.
No, it's not that way at all. But I think that somehow there's that little reflex that's whispering that at you.
No, I'm forever thinking, no, we don't need to go do that. Let's not go do this because there's so many opportunities.
No.
But there are people, Hal, who are rude, who want to argue with you and who argue with you every time. And it's stressful, especially when you're already questioning your decision, wondering if you've made a bad mistake and maybe you've ruined your kids. First of all, you haven't ruined your kids. Okay.
No, and one of the pieces of advice we give to new homeschoolers is go ahead and commit to do this for a full year.
Yes.
Go ahead and say, okay, we're going to do third grade or whatever it is your child is in. We're going to do this whole year because it takes you a little while to get into your groove and to get,
for your kids to figure out that they have to do it, even though just mom told them.
And at the same time, it doesn't do the kids any good to, snatch them out of the school system on Monday and then 2 weeks later you throw them back in because you're worried, and that just disrupts the whole process for everybody.
Right.
So go ahead and make the commitment
for a full year.
For a full year.
Because you know what? Most people who make it through an entire year of homeschooling never look back because they realize the incredible benefits academically, spiritually, as a family and your family relationships, so many benefits. And
one of those benefits is we decided we're going to do this for a full year. Stop, and that's it. You've already made that decision and you're not going to re-examine it. Then you don't question yourself as much, I think.
Yeah, and it does. It kind of takes that pressure off because you don't have to re-examine the decision every week. In fact, you can tell your kid, your husband, your mother-in-law, we'll talk about that next summer. This is our decision for this year because we want to give our child a consistent education this year.
Right.
And that's going to be our decision for now. We'll talk about it next summer. And you know what? Lots of times by summer, all those questions have been answered. The kids have friends. That you've joined a homeschool group or a co-op, and your kids have friends. You have friends. The kids are learning. They're excited about learning maybe for the first time, and they're sharing what they learned. And so a lot of times by the end of that, the questions are going to go away. One great way to answer questions is to go to a homeschool conference. That will build your confidence and give you lots of practical help. It's also great for your in-laws and your parents because
that was a turning point for my mother, who was a career public school educator, and that was something that she didn't want to interfere with our decisions, but she was really uncertain about why what we were doing and how that was going to work. And the first time that she came to a homeschooling convention with us, and she's walking through there and she's seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of happy families and bright-eyed kids, and she's seeing all of these incredible resources and books and audiovisual things and all the rest of that. She was just blown away. But I think it showed her, look, this isn't a dangerous little fringe group. This isn't a bunch of isolated oddballs out here. This is a movement of well-adjusted families.
I will never forget. We had spent that first afternoon at the conference, and we're in the elevator on the way back to the room, and her mouth was hanging open. She was just like,
yeah.
She said, I had no idea. She said, I was picturing a couple of dozen families in a church basement. And I told her, I said, I told you there were going to be 9,000 people here.
Yeah.
She said, yeah, I just didn't believe you. I don't know why. I don't think you're a liar, but I just didn't believe you.
Yeah. It was just too much to deal with.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so get them out to see the community. Invite your mother to come to one of your volleyball games. Invite your mother-in-law to come to when the co-op does their presentations.
You have to ask, but I know that some state conventions have a policy that grandparents can get in free.
Oh yeah.
For exactly that reason.
Yes.
For exactly that reason. So ask the question, when you're going to your state convention.
Okay. Now I want to give them some help.
Yes.
For the person who just loves to argue with you.
And everybody's got an uncle like that. Everybody's got an aunt or somebody that you just know. Here we go again.
Here we go again. Some people take you answering their questions as you can be convinced and they want to argue with you. Mm-hmm. And you'll know who this is because you've had this discussion before. Mm-hmm. And so let me tell you what to do. They offer their opinion and you say, thank you, I'll consider that. Mm-hmm. And stop talking. And then they will say something else and you say, thank you, I'll consider that. And don't say anything else. Because thank you, I'll consider that says, you know what, I heard you. I know you're concerned. I'm taking it seriously, but it's my decision.
Right.
And I'll decide that, not right now. And if you refuse to engage them, they'll stop because it's no fun to argue with somebody who won't argue back.
Well, and also the example we've given our kids growing up dealing with bullies. And, bullies come in different sizes and forms. But one of them is that in the chicken run, that the chickens will peck on the ones that are weaker. And if you show yourself to be confident and pleasant and unafraid, then a lot of that bullying kind of gets damped down. There's no point in teasing you if you don't rise to the bait. And so yeah, I mean, that's another thing too.
Whoa. Can we discuss one more problem person?
Sure, go ahead.
The person who quizzes your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, often this causes them a problem because many homeschool kids love to show off what they know, and so they quiz your kids and they have to beg them to stop.
Right.
But if you have a child who's a struggling learner, this can be really stressful and intimidating because they're asked to perform in a situation where they're not comfortable, where they're anxious, and they may not be on grade level. That doesn't mean they won't always be behind grade level, but they'll catch up in their own time. Mm-hmm. In fact, I have one that didn't learn to read till he was 11, severely dyslexic, but now he's a college graduate and a great career that earns 6 figures. Yeah. And so how do you handle that, though? One thing you can do is teach your kids to say something like, "Aw, it's not school time. Do I have to do school right now?" Now, I don't generally encourage my children to whine, but this is a great time to whine because no kid wants to have a pop quiz during Christmas break.
Yeah, and it's perfectly okay to coach the witness here. Yes. If your kids are going to get cross-examined, it's perfectly all right to tell them, okay, now look, Aunt Susan is going to ask you, what grade are you in? Now that's kind of, in a way, a lot of people mean how old are you?
Yes.
But you can tell anybody that asks, if it's your aunt or your grandmother or if it's the lady at the checkout counter at the store, you can say, oh, I'm in the 4th grade.
But Mom, we're using the 5th grade math book and the 3rd grade vocabulary. That's okay, because what they're really asking is how old you are.
They're and so that's a good stock answer, and it's okay to coach them on some things like that. To say, well, what are you learning in school? Okay, here are some answers that you can give.
Yes.
Because if they get hit by these questions, flat-footed, sometimes they'll go blank and say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you like to read? I don't know.
Yeah, and prepare them with an answer like, what's your favorite subject? Prepare them so they know how to answer that question. And what do you love about homeschooling? And prepare them so they don't say, I don't have to do anything. Because that's not true.
Right.
But that seems to be what kids will pop out with. Also, prepare them with an answer to what do you hate about homeschooling? And here's a great answer. People quizzing me about school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
So there's I went to a seminar by a political organization that was talking about organizing campaigns and working in political movements of different sorts. And one of the little rules they gave us was you don't have to kick every dog that barks. And that's really important. You don't have to convince, everybody doesn't have to agree with you. Nobody has to agree
It's
with
not
you.
their decision.
It's not their decision. It's not their lives. It's not their kids.
Yeah.
And if you have just made a decision in the sight of God for the benefit of your family, then you can just stand on that. And if they agree with you, great. And if they don't agree with you, well, okay.
All right.
Everybody's got an opinion. And,
I'm sure they're doing things you don't agree with either.
Yeah. And, that other people's, the same kind of things when you're dealing with other homeschoolers. You say, you know what? They're using the curriculum they're using for reasons that are different than our decision, and that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
We don't all have to do the same thing. We don't all have to parent the same way. Mm-hmm. This is within the bounds of God's commandments. Right. We have a lot of liberty, and so let them be them, and they need to let you be you. And let me encourage you that a lot of the early skepticism will go away. As our family and our friends' families, as our kids grew up, as they found out what bright, intelligent, well socialized, easy to get along with kids we had, they became advocates of homeschooling, and they started encouraging their friends. I remember when one of your mom's friends came to her and said, "Oh my word, my son has decided to homeschool like Hal." Mm-hmm. And she said, actually it's going to be good. I think you're going to really like it. And her friend said, "Do you think we might have homeschooled if that had been a thing when we had kids?" That's when you've won,
Yeah.
And so give them time to get adjusted. Recognize that this is not something super unusual or very weird. 11% of all school-age kids are currently homeschooled.
That means if you got 9 kids in Sunday school class, one of them's probably being homeschooled at least.
That's more than are in private schools.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so this is less weird than going to a private school.
Right. And so, as we said, consider that they probably have your best interests at heart, but it's not their decision. It's not their problem.
Yep.
And so you can stand in the confidence that God's given you and say, hey, we've made a choice, we've made a decision, and we may consider it again sometime in the future, but for right now, we want to give our kids a stable educational environment. Yeah. And thank you for your concern.
Stick to your guns.
Yep.
And give them time. Remember that they love you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and don't forget to get the support you need. If your family's not into homeschooling, or even if they are, you need local homeschool friends. You need to find a local support group. You need to find friends that are homeschooling. Because, some days are hard. And you need to be sitting outside homeschool band, waiting for your kids. Mm-hmm. And when someone says, "Wow, my kids have been like maniacs this week," and you realize, "So have mine." And somebody says, "Yeah, I think it's because it's rained all week and they didn't get to go outside." And you go, "Oh, it's not that I'm a failure. It's that my kids have cabin fever."
Yeah, it's the weather. It's the weather. Nobody can do anything about the weather. So
yeah, and so you just need the perspective that having other homeschoolers in your life will give you. You need the perspective of having older homeschoolers that you can look and say, "Okay, look, she's doing high school. I can do high school too." So get that support. And
you know what? Since you mentioned support, where do you find support? I tell you what, easy answer, go to the Homeschool Legal Defense Association website, hslda.org, and they have a list of state organizations where you can go find who's the predominant state organization in your area, and then you go to them and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a support group in our town or our county or whatever." They can connect you up.
Yeah, all state organizations keep lists of the support groups around their state, and that's a great way to find out what's available in your area. And you know what? There's hardly an area in the world that you can't find a homeschool support group anymore.
And about conventions, we're going to be speaking at several this year.
A bunch of them.
We're going to be speaking at the Teach Them Diligently conventions in Round Rock, Texas, and in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
At HAV in Virginia, FPEA in Florida, Patch in Illinois, Ocean Network in Oregon, all over the place. And so we look forward to seeing you there. Come up and speak to us. And Hal, it's time for us to go.
It is. So look, thank you for joining us. We hope that it's been encouraging and helpful. And until the next time, I'm Hal.
And I'm Melanie.
Bye-bye now.
Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Making Biblical Family Life Practical with Hal and Melanie Young. If you found this program interesting, challenging, and encouraging, why not join us on the web at halandmelanie.com. That's HALANDMELANIE.com. Or follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook/Hal and Melanie or Facebook.com/RaisingRealMen. This program is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Join us next week when we'll be back to talk about making biblical family life practical. Until then, thank you and God bless you for listening.